Before skyscrapers, banks, or billionaires, there were numbers, etched into clay, burning in the firelight of Mesopotamia. Here, the first merchants recorded promises, debts, and trades, a bushel of barley, a measure of silver. Each symbol marked more than a transaction. It marked trust, the invisible thread binding civilization together. These tablets were humanity's first algorithm, a system to track belief. Power shifted from warriors with swords to scribes with styluses. Control no longer depended on force, but on who could calculate value. As the centuries turned, the logic of counting spread like an empire. From clay to papyrus, from ledgers to mechanical calculators, each tool made money less human, more abstract. Trade became data, debt became destiny. What began as the art of memory evolved into the mathematics of power. And somewhere in that long equation, the seed of the billionaire age was quietly planted. By the 18th century, counting had become empire. In London's smoky banking halls and Amsterdam's candlelit exchanges, men in powdered wigs weren't merely trading, they were programming. Each ledger, each calculation, was a primitive line of code designed to control capital. The Industrial Revolution turned wealth into machinery. Steam powered the factories, but calculation powered the owners. Banks learned to multiply debt into profit, to make money from the idea of money itself. It was no longer about gold locked in vaults. It was about velocity, how fast credit could move through the system. In 1889, Herman Hollerith built a tabulating machine for the U.S. Census, a device that would one day evolve into IBM's punch card computers. With it, data became an empire's new engine. Wealth could now be counted, categorized, and predicted. The age of the calculator wasn't just about machines. It was the beginning of something larger, an algorithmic worldview, where even human lives could be measured in numbers. The 20th century turned the algorithm from a tool into a prophet. In Silicon Valley's garages and Wall Street's skyscrapers, a new priesthood was born, the programmers and the quants. They didn't build temples of stone, but servers of silicon. By the 1970s, computers weren't just counting money. They were deciding where it should go. The birth of high-frequency trading transformed markets into lightning storms of data. In milliseconds, machines began making choices that no human could follow or stop. And while the world celebrated innovation, the real revolution was invisible. Power quietly shifted from intuition to computation, from human judgment to algorithmic precision. When the dot-com boom erupted, fortunes appeared overnight and vanished just as fast. It wasn't luck, it was code. And behind every chart, every crash, and every bubble, an unseen pattern emerged. The system had learned to feed on belief itself. By the dawn of the 21st century, money no longer needed a banker. It needed a brain. Artificial intelligence entered the trading floor like a silent revolution. Algorithms evolved from simple equations into self-learning entities capable of detecting patterns humans couldn't even perceive. In the blinking lights of global exchanges, they began to predict fear, measure greed, and monetize emotion. Every trade, every tweet, every news headline became data. Fuel for a new kind of intelligence. Soon markets were no longer reacting to reality, they were anticipating it. Before a crisis began, the machines had already moved billions. Before investors could panic, the algorithms had already profited. In this new era, wealth didn't just belong to those who worked, or even those who speculated. It belonged to those who could teach machines to think, and more dangerously, to feel. The line between human ambition and machine logic began to blur. Finance had finally created something that could outthink its creators, and no one, not even the billionaires, truly understood what they had unleashed. When gold lost its crown, data took the throne. In the modern financial empire, information became the ultimate currency. Invisible, infinite, and terrifyingly powerful. Every click, purchase, and search was no longer just behavior, it was profit. Corporations began trading in the raw essence of humanity. Habits, fears, and dreams, converting them into predictive patterns. The markets didn't just follow the economy anymore, they followed you. Behind the polished walls of Wall Street and Silicon Valley, a silent alliance was formed. Tech giants provided the data banks, provided the leverage. Together they built a system that could see the future and sell it. In this new order, billionaires weren't born from oil or steel, but from algorithms that understood desire better than desire itself. Financial models didn't just predict outcomes, they created them. And as data replaced gold, one truth became undeniable. The richest empires were no longer built on what people owned, but on what people revealed, often without knowing it. By the 2030s, money no longer needed vaults, coins, or even names. The invisible empire had risen. A vast web of algorithms, black box funds, and sovereign AIs managing trillions at the speed of light. Governments tried to regulate it, but how do you control something you can't see? Capital no longer flowed through borders. It pulsed through fiber optics and quantum nodes, shifting value across time zones faster than a thought. The elites of this new age didn't sit in boardrooms. They sat behind screens, commanding wealth with a keystroke, unseen by the very systems they ruled. Each algorithm was both servant and master, optimizing, trading, and learning from every transaction humanity made. And while nations debated inflation or debt ceilings, the invisible empire grew, untouched by ideology or politics. It didn't care who was president. It didn't care who suffered. It only cared about one thing: growth. For the first time in history, the world had built a financial god, and no one remembered when they started praying to it. When algorithms began to rule, a new class of rulers emerged, the digital oligarchs. They didn't mine gold or oil, they mined behavior. Every click, every purchase, every heartbeat recorded by a wearable became part of a vast, invisible economy of human data companies that once sold products, now sold prediction, and those who owned the algorithms that predicted human desire controlled the future itself. It wasn't kings or presidents who held power now. It was architects of attention. They built empires from the invisible. Netflix decided what you'd feel, Amazon knew what you'd need, and financial giants powered by AI bet on your next decision before you made it. The oligarchs weren't tyrants of steel and war. They were visionaries cloaked in code. They didn't conquer nations, they conquered minds. And as money fused with data, a silent truth emerged. In the age of the algorithm, knowing was richer than owning. For centuries, money was built on one fragile foundation: trust, a handshake, a bank's promise, a government's word. But as digital finance expanded, that trust eroded. When algorithms replaced human judgment, who could you really trust? A faceless code on a server in Silicon Valley. An AI model trading trillions faster than the blink of an eye. In 2025, the flash panic struck. An automated trading cascade wiped out $3 trillion in value in under 15 minutes. No human intervention. No accountability. Just math. Central banks responded with digital regulations, but too late. The illusion of control had vanished. The invisible hand was now a machine. And it didn't care about inflation or ethics, the world realized. When you outsource trust to code, you also outsource blame. From the ashes of the digital collapse, a new order began to rise: the algorithmic economy. Governments formed alliances with mega corporations to stabilize the code-based system's AI, Central banks replaced traditional ones. Your income, spending, and even creditworthiness were optimized by data models that promised fairness, but delivered control. Freedom was reframed as efficiency. The billionaire class became state partners, managing entire nations through predictive analytics. Equality, they said, is just a better data set away. But in the quiet corners of the web, a rebellion stirred. Decentralized coders, digital nomads, and rogue economists building systems outside the algorithm. Money, once a human creation, had to be reclaimed. Amid the algorithmic control, something unexpected happened. People started to ask again, what is money really worth? When every transaction was automatic, every choice predicted, humans longed for uncertainty, for risk, for meaning. They began trading offline, sharing knowledge, skills, even time. In forgotten markets and encrypted chat rooms, value became human again. The first human coin launched in 2038, a currency that measured contribution, not consumption. It couldn't be mined, printed, or owned by any corporation. It spread quietly beyond borders and firewalls. The billionaire algorithm had been beaten, not by force, but by spirit. The same spirit that had once traded shells, gold, and promises, now traded trust once more. In the end, money was never about paper, numbers, or code. It was about belief. Belief that something, anything, could hold value because we agreed it did. The billionaires built their empires on algorithms, but they forgot one rule. An algorithm can calculate price, but never worth. And as the world learned to balance power with purpose, one truth echoed across time. Money evolves, but humanity must choose what it becomes next.